I never imagined betrayal would sound like a gavel. But when the judge said, "This court will now hear case number 5473, Anderson versus Anderson," I realized my parents' voices weren't trembling from shame. They were trembling from excitement. They were suing me, their own son, to evict me from the house I bought, the one I'd rebuilt after my divorce. The one they now claimed was meant for my sister's first home. Across the courtroom, my mother avoided my eyes. My father's tie was perfectly knotted. My sister, Lily, looked like a victim, tears in place. Voice rehearsed, but the truth was simpler. They'd all agreed I didn't deserve to keep something they could use. That was their first mistake. It started 3 years ago after my divorce. I moved back to the old neighborhood, bought a worn-down craftsman house, and fixed it with my own hands. My parents called it practical. Lily called it cute. I called it home. They visited often, offering advice, borrowing tools, hinting that Lily wanted a place nearby once she married her fiancé, Ryan. I didn't think much of it until the day Mom casually said, "It would be poetic if this house stayed in the family for Lily." I laughed. She didn't. That's when I started noticing the paperwork my father left on the counter when he helped with my taxes, the sudden questions about my mortgage, the calls from a property appraiser who claimed to be updating local listings. By the time I realized they'd put the deed into question, it was too late. My father's lawyer had filed quietly, claiming the down payment came from a family trust, one my parents managed. Their argument: it was technically their money, so the house should return to their intended heir, my sister. I didn't confront them. I didn't yell. I watched. I let my parents' kindness continue. Their Sunday visits, their calls, pretending to check in. I answered politely, even when I knew they were fishing for information. I didn't fight. I planned. I started recording every conversation, every slip, every admission that the trust they claimed didn't exist when I bought the house. But that wasn't enough. I needed something they couldn't twist, something undeniable. Turns out that came from someone they hadn't accounted for. My daughter, Emma, 7 years old, quieter than most, but she noticed everything. One night, she sat at the dining table, tapping her tablet. "Grandma said you'll have to move soon," she murmured. I froze. "She said that?" Emma nodded. "She said this is Aunt Lily's real house now. I recorded it. Want to hear?" I did. And in that moment, her small fingers pressing play, my mother's voice whispering poison into my child's ears. That was when the revenge began. Court day came fast. My parents' lawyer painted a story of generosity gone wrong. "Mr. Anderson," he said, "used his parents' trust fund to purchase this property. It was always intended for his sister. We merely request it be returned to its rightful owner." I stayed silent, calm. My lawyer didn't speak yet. The judge, an older woman with a sharp gaze, looked between us. "And what proof do you have of this trust fund?" My father smiled and slid a folder across the table. I watched her skim it. Her expression didn't change. "These are unsigned drafts," she said. He shifted in his seat. "Well, the documents were verbal agreements." "Verbal," she repeated. He nodded, already sweating. Then came my turn. I stood and adjusted my tie. "Your Honor, before I present my defense, my daughter asked if she could show you something. She's 7, but I think it's relevant." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Proceed." Emma walked forward, small tablet in hand. She looked nervous, but steady. "Can I show you something Mom doesn't know?" she asked softly. The judge smiled faintly. "Go ahead." Emma pressed play. My mother's voice filled the courtroom. "Don't worry, Lily," she said on the recording. "Once your brother's gone, we'll tell him it's for his own good. He never appreciated what we did for him anyway." A pause. My father's voice followed. "He'll fold. He always does." Then laughter. My sister's, clear and smug. "Good. I want the house before the wedding. If photographs better." Silence. I looked at them, each one frozen in their seat. The judge leaned forward. "This was recorded in your home, Mr. Anderson?" "Yes, ma'am. My daughter recorded it without me knowing. I submitted the unedited fields, metadata, and timestamp to the court this morning." She nodded slowly. "Then I've heard enough." The gavel came down like thunder. "Case dismissed. Property remains in Mr. Anderson's ownership. Further, I'm forwarding this to family court for potential fraud investigation." My parents didn't move. My sister started to cry. But it wasn't guilt. It was disbelief. I turned to Emma, knelt, and whispered, "You did perfect." When I stood again, my father finally spoke. "You think you've won?" I looked him in the eye. "No. I proved you lost." They left without looking back. I didn't follow. The house was quiet that night. Too quiet. But it was mine. Every board, every nail, Every wall I'd rebuilt now stood as proof of something they could never take. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers through a child's voice in a courtroom. And sometimes that's loud enough to end an entire bloodline's illusion of control. I looked around my living room, the one they called temporary, and smiled. They wanted a house. I built a fortress.